Hello YouTube, this is Frugal, and this obviously is a British Airways 737-800. I've rejoined British Airways Virtual. I'll explain why as we start flying, but I wanted to do, when you rejoin something like that, all your hours get reset, or all mine did anyway, so I need to start from the very beginning. So I've done one flight with them, which was this flight I'm about to do from Gatwick here to Jersey. And I'm going to do it again because I have a kind of a neat configuration in my sim that I thought many of you would find interesting. This is Prepared, obviously, Prepared Professional 2.5. And what I'm using here, I have add-on scenery for Gatwick, which is UK 2000's Gatwick. I have add-on scenery for Jersey, which is UK 2000's Jersey. That's it. Everything else is stock, except two things. I'm using Flight 1's, I think it's Flight 1's, Ultimate Terrain X Europe version 2. And I'm also using Orbex Trees HD. This is the first video I've done with both of those products. What Ultimate Terrain X does is it basically puts in the land classes and improves the auto-gen and all that good stuff, and puts in railroad tracks and rivers, and basically improves the auto-gen and the scenery outside without completely replacing all the textures for everything. In fact, it might replace some of the textures, or many of them. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while since I wrote a review, to be honest. And Orbex Trees HD replaces the autogen for the trees with more frame rate friendly trees. And when I did this flight the other day, I actually looked out the window a couple of times, especially on this particular flight, and noticed some very, very cool stuff. I've also been having out of memory errors with the sim a lot. And so what I've done there is I've turned all my sliders down. I'm actually running all the sliders in the middle position. Normally I run them absolutely maxed out to the right. And I don't have a problem with frame rates doing that, but I do have a problem with out-of-memory errors. So anyway, this aircraft is pretty much ready to go. I haven't put in my SID yet, so let's go on over to the other computer. It's almost fully loaded. So here's the other computer, and we're at Gatwick. We're taking 26 left, so it makes sense actually that we use the SAM 1X RNAV departure. We're going to do an RNAV approach as well into Jersey. And so let's take a look at this. This is kind of interesting. We have constraints here at or above 2500, at or above 3000 here, then at 4000 at Midhurst, and at 4000 at Southampton before beginning a climb after that. But that's the interesting bit. We're going to fly all the way over the south of England at fairly low level. What a great flight this is going to be. So you'll be able to really see a lot of stuff going on outside the window. Not that unusual, I guess, for an airliner flight, especially using a SID like this, but unusual in my video. So we're going to spend quite a long time over the south of England at low level, almost VFR altitudes, taking a look out the window, and you can see all the coolness that Ultimate Terrain X version 2, Europe version 2, brings. And you can see the Orbex trees, and more importantly, you can see what the sim looks like with the sliders not maxed. And it actually looks really, really good. I know a lot of you have had problems with performance as well, so maybe this will help some of you. Anyway, we're about to start pushback, so what I am going to do, I've got everything in here. Oh, actually, I haven't fed in my SID, so we decided on SAM 1X. So let's go ahead and set that up. So departures and arrivals, departing from Gatwick. It's got actual 26 left, but you still need to select it, which we'll do. And we'll scroll on down here. SAM 1X, and execute. And go look at the legs. Make sure we have no weirdnesses going on. We don't. We haven't chosen the star yet, but that's completely fine. So we can go to init ref now that we got the SID in there, and we can look at our takeoff performance. We're going to need to leave it on the takeoff page. There we go. We got our V speeds now, 139, 139, 145. So 139, 139, 145. Trim is 5.29. So with that done, we can set in here 145. Our initial altitude, obviously, we got to hold 4,000 all the way out to Southampton, so we'll style in 4,000 here. Good. And I think we're all set. We can verify that everything's set. You've seen all this before, guys. You can verify that everything's set, that the aircraft is set to do its auto flight thing by hitting LNAV. If that turns green, you're good, and VNAV. If that turns green, you have a vertical path. So obviously I do, by choosing the SID and setting in my V speeds, I have an accurate vertical path, and we're all good to go. Alright, so before pushback, parking brake is currently set. Fuel pump switches need to go on at this point. Well, we're actually going to need to disconnect ground power and all that good stuff as well. So before we get running on all that, let's go ahead and remove the gate. Now, I'm not using GSX. Very few add-ons in my version of Prepared right now, for good reason. So we can take a look at what it's really like. So that's going back. And with that going back, we can pop on down here, go to the menu, FS Action, Doors, Let's close that one. I think we got the 2 on the right hand side. The cargo doors open as well. Let's take a look outside. Yep, they're all closing. That's closed. Gates returning. Fabulous. So we're going to need to start the APU at this point, because we're going to be disconnecting the ground power. So fuel pump's on. Let's fire up the APU. I'll just change my view a little bit here so we can get a better view there. Obviously, I'm using EasyDock to change the views. I get asked that on every single video. Nearly 3 years or 4 years even after I started this channel, I still get asked, how do you change the view? EasyDock. It's EasyDock. You can get it from Flight 1. Alright, so we're going to let that come on up. We'll go on steady and strobe now, right up here. Might as well turn the anti-collision lights on at this point. Now the APU's powered up, so the exhaust gas temperature has gone quite high, and we're waiting for the EGT now to drop. And when it's all ready to go, we'll see a little light come on up here. We can actually check down here as well and see if the APU is running, but we're not going to. We're just going to keep an eye on this and make sure that this comes on. Then we will disconnect ground power, but first connect the APU generators. Don't want to spend too long on the ground doing all this, obviously. We're burning fuel. They're connected. Ground power is disconnected. So back down here, ground connections, pull the chocks and the external power and everything. And we are now actually configured to do everything else. Now because I'm not using GSX, I'm going to use the built-in pushback. But let's continue on our merry way here. So getting ready to start up. So we're going to turn all the fuel pumps on. 1, 2, 3 missing. Hydraulics system A pumps all go off, and system B pumps all go on. Position lights, I did that. Anti-collision trim lights, I did that. We can set the trim now because we turned on the system B hydraulics. It was 5.29, I think it was, wasn't it? Let's have a look. 5.29. So hit my handy dandy trim switch. I'm gonna pull this down. The aircraft has almost a full payload of people, but it's very light on fuel. It's only a 1 hour flight. So trim is quite high. Stabilizer trim has been set. So on the overhead now, getting ready to start. Well, let's not. Let's go ahead and call for pushback first. Let's clear that. Flight control is great. Let's just do a check here. Yeah, everything's actually looking normal. So down here, we'll go to the menu. FS Actions, pushback, and we'll speak to Captain Robert Randazzo on the ground. I only want to go back 100 feet. Even that's probably too much, but you can't go much less than that. So we are going to push back over the grass, but that's alright. It's a sim, it's not real, people. Turning the nose right 90 degrees and start.
And ground, cockpit.
Go ahead, Captain.
We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push and start at your discretion.
Roger that, ready for push. Power and air are clear, doors closed, we are ready for pushback. Parking brake, please.
Alright, parking brake off. And we can start getting ready to start up. So air conditioning packs now go off.
Brake is off, clear to push.
So there's the air conditioning packs. They both go off. Start sequence is going to be 2 then 1. So as we're pushing, we're going to turn engine number 2 there to ground.
Here we go.
We'll bring up the secondary engine displays down here. Alright, ground. Looking for 20%. At which point we'll introduce the fuel. Don't do it before that, we'll get a hot start. Basically things will break. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, up we go with the fuel. And we'll wait for the start of disconnect. I don't know what you would call this. It's a post-processing effect that Prepared adds to everything. I've used this scenery a lot. You've seen it in many of my videos, UK 2000's Gatwick. And it just looks a little softer and a little, I don't know, more better than it does in FSX. I'm still not totally sold, especially, now I've got to eat my words a bit, I'm still not totally sold on whether Prepared is the right choice for many of you over FSX Steam Edition. FSX Steam Edition performs phenomenally. It's 60 frames per second in a lot of cases for me, as you've seen from my 60 FPS videos. But Prepared does look better. See the shadow creeping across there, waiting for 20% on engine number 1. There it is. Introduce the fuel. That HDR effect as well, where you kind of look up from down there and it all kind of fades in because your eyes are getting accustomed to it. I like that. There we go, straight across the grass. But I do know that the PMDG pushback is going to actually leave me on tarmac, so it's not a big problem. Or the rest of the BA fleet there getting ready to fly out of Gatwick on this actually quite nice May day. If you want to do this yourself, it was filmed at 4 o'clock on Monday, May the 25th. So set your Active Sky Next to use historical weather, and obviously I am using Active Sky Next on a second computer. It's almost fully loaded because I have Active Sky Next on the other computer, and all sorts of lovely stuff going on there. I actually didn't start my A-Cars thing, which I should have done. Oh, set the brake.
Alright, brakes are set and pressure's normal.
Even though I actually have a note in my checklist to do just that. Let me see if I can start it. No! Okay.
Alright guys, thanks. You're cleared to disconnect. We will be watching for the pin and the release from guidance on the right side of the airplane, and we'll see you guys next time through.
Alright, so we've pushed back. Let's finish setting up the aircraft. So generators 1 and 2 can go on. 1 and 2. The hydraulic A pumps now will go on. 1, 2. Probe heat goes on. That turns off all those 8 warning lights right there. Wing anti-ice and engine anti-ice we're not going to need. Pack switches now need to all be on auto. There. You'll hear the roar of the air conditioning. Isolation valve, which is currently open, needs to go to auto. Engine bleeds should be on. APU bleed air should be now off. Engine start switches should go to continuous. We can actually turn off the APU at this point, so we will. In fact, yeah, that's fine. Engine start levers should be on the idle to 10th setting, which they are. We can blank out that lower display unit by clicking engine once again. Transponder, well, we'll turn that onto TARA right now. Not that there's any other traffic in here because I'm not using ATC. And with all that done, we will check recall. No lights, no warnings. So, flaps 5, which is what we're going to use for takeoff. I always get asked what I'm flying with in terms of hardware. This is actually the GoFlight yoke and the GoFlight throttle quadrant today. I really do like them. I have been reviewing other yokes. I got a very expensive yoke from Yoko the Yoke, which you're about to see a video of. Maybe even it's up by the time you see this one, who knows. I got to do some final edits on it, but that one is phenomenal as well. Really, really nice, but couldn't really pick out anything specific that put it over and above the GoFlight one. It's just a matter of personal preference. Alright, so taxi and runway turn-off lights. Put those all on. Flaps are set, stabilizer trim has been set, parking brake can be released in a second. Terrain display we're not going to worry about just yet. Cabin crew notification, well, we don't have cabin crew, I'm not using it FS to crew, but we'll just do the chime, let them know. And we're all good, so I'm going to put this little checklist away and reset my view, and let's taxi on out to runway 26 left and start this flight. I do feel like I've missed something, but I don't have any warning lights. I will take a look up in a second just to make sure. Oh, obviously Cytec rudder pedals as well. Love my Cytec pedals. No, I'm not sponsored by Cytec, nor am I paid by them to say that, or GoFlight, or indeed anybody else. Trying to line this up. Getting back into flying the 737, I stopped for a long period of time. I put in all my hours at British Airways Virtual and got up to the point that I could fly the 777. And that was actually my goal, really, was to use BAVirtual to get a lot of hours in the 737 under a structured plan, I guess, you know, following BA schedules and having to do at least one flight a month and all that good stuff, and it worked, and I got up to a 777 and I kind of just stopped, and then I ran out of time, so I had to let my membership lapse. But then recently I've been managing my time a little bit. Still have a hideous amount of work on, but kind of not sweating the small stuff, so if I don't put out a video like every 2 days or whatever, it doesn't really bother me too much, particularly since I'm not doing the subscription thing or the Patreon thing or anything like that. That's not a dig, God. I gotta. This is it's getting to the annoying point on this YouTube channel where I have to qualify everything. That's not a dig at anyone in particular. I know other people use Patreon, and I have voiced my concerns in the past, but it's not a dig. They are welcome to do as they see fit. It's just not me. So the point is, because I'm not doing that, yeah, I shouldn't really sweat it if I don't put out a video every 2 days, every 3 days, even every week. I can let the more important things take over. Those more important things, of course, being the day job and being family. Whoa, what the hell was that? I had an aircraft land on me. I saw gear. The more important things, obviously, being work, being day job, being family. Good to get the priorities right. Okay, down here, we're going to turn right on. I think it's Lima. It is Lima. Heading on out. Now, I was quite surprised. I got Ultimate Terrain X Europe version 2, what a catchy name that is, a few months ago. And I got it because I was commissioned to write an article about it in PC Pilot magazine, which I've now done, and it should be in print any day now. So, after doing that article and spending a lot of time doing that article, I didn't use it. This is another curse, I guess, with being a reviewer, whether it's on a magazine or on a YouTube channel, is you tend to see so much stuff, you can't spend a lot of quality time with anything. You jump around a lot of different things. But I did that for the review, and I loved it. I said it was really good, but thought I would return to using it for some of these flights. And as I said, I was really quite amazed at how good a job it does. Ultimate Terrain X does work actually with Orbex FTX Global if you have it. It kind of does the same sort of thing that FTX Global Vector does, you know, with changing the land class, changing the autogen classes, but then also adds some stuff on top of that as well. Now, I always get my turns mixed up here. I know I can't go straight, that would put me on the runway. So I'm going to turn to the left down here, down Zulu. I always think that shouldn't be Zulu, and I wonder how long it will be before the political correct people get in there and say you can't name it after an African tribe without all the other letters of the phonetic alphabet also being African tribes. And so I think at some point we're going to return, or we're going to change that. It wouldn't surprise me to zebra or zebra, which is what I always think it should be. It should be zebra. All right, nice animated trains. Those are the Gatwick shuttles over there between the two terminals. Again, a feature of UK 2000's Gatwick Extreme. I think it's version 3. I get the version numbers confused. Doesn't really matter, it just looks good. UK 2000, by the way, is probably my favorite scenery provider. I do love their work. They do an amazing job. Alright, we're going to take that turning. So not this one, that one. Now for my checklists, I actually recently got the Microsoft Surface 3. I tweeted about it a couple of months ago. I had the Surface, I think it was the Surface 2 Pro. I did a video on it a long time ago on this very channel to see whether it would be a good second machine for FSX. And I didn't like it. I thought it was too heavy to be a tablet, too underpowered to be a notebook, and the battery wasn't great, it gets too hot. This is the worst taxi ever. And I just didn't like it, so I actually returned it 2 days after I bought it. And then the Surface 3 came out, and it's not the Pro, so it's cheap. It's about the same price as an iPad, but it is a full PC. So I've been using that a lot. I've got all my checklists on it, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I actually got some software as well called Multiplicity, which you can get from Stardock. I'm using that right now, which is great for fully loaded videos, kind of like this one, because I can use a single keyboard and mouse to control 2 computers and even to control the Surface. But the other cool thing with the Surface, of course, is I can write on what I'm looking at, so I can actually put notes on my checklist and print my charts out and stuff like that. Anyway, we're getting ready to go. So exterior lights. So we're going to turn those lights all on. Clock ETA, we'll do that once we get on the runway. Transponder is already on TA and RA. Alright, nothing else to worry about at this point. Our course is all set, our range is all set. We could turn on the weather radar. I've been having issues with it not working lately. Let's turn off center. Whoa. There we go. We'll turn off center. Weather radar is on. Let me just turn the gain up, so that if there is anything to see, we'll see it. I don't think we will. I've had issues with Active Sky Next running over the network, and it's not been showing me what I expect it to show me. So if we see nothing down here, then you know for why. Alright, let's line up on the runway. We'll manually fly this a fair amount. There's quite a lot to do, obviously, in a 737, so you can't manually fly everywhere. I mean, you can. It makes for an interesting experiment. I know Angle of Attack did that on one of their training sessions. Let's go manually fly around. Certainly a great idea. Good way to get a feel of the aircraft. But in general, on a scheduled flight like this, you wouldn't manually fly for too long. There is too much to do in the cockpit. At least initially. Alright, let's line up here. Just let it coast into position. Been a long time, people. I'm not sure why my navigation display is actually showing the runway offset from where I currently am, but okay. We'll take it. Alright, 40% on the engines. Let them stabilize. On the brakes. Toga off the brakes. We roll on down here. I've got the V-speed callouts turned on. So we have something of an active co-pilot in terms of at least calling stuff out. Oh, a little gust there, pushing us sideways. Like I said, full payload, very light on the fuel. So a nicely performing middle of the road 737-800. V1, rotate.
V2.
Whoa, that was a sharp rotation, nose up. There we go. Positive rate, so gear up. Come on. Let's get that nose down a little bit, follow the flight director. We'll lock the gear a little later. And trim. Just to hold this climb here. Gently bringing the nose up. See Orbex trees out the window. They actually look much more natural. The cool thing with Orbex trees as well is they seem to be regional. So you wouldn't see a palm tree, for example, on the south coast of England. But you might see oaks. Alright, acceleration height. So engines coming back now, nose coming down. 2,400 feet. Bit of a slight crosswind from the right on the nose, but the aircraft beautiful as ever to fly. I actually do find as well that the flight models in Prepared feel more fluid than they do in FSX, so I guess that's a thing to consider. And I didn't see anything during the beta of the Prepared 737 or 777 about flight model changed. I think it's just better at doing simulating that stuff. Let's go up to flaps 2, or even flaps 1. Coming up on 4,000 feet, which is our altitude that we set. Nose down a little bit, gotta adjust for that wind. Alright, flaps up. And we will take it out to the turn, I think. Probably going to break my altitude constraint a little bit, manually flying here. But again, no other aircraft around, no ATC. It's not a huge deal. People get a little bit too bent out of shape by stuff that realistically in a video game doesn't matter too much. Unless, of course, you're using the video game to train for an actual certification or rating. There we go. Such a beautiful plane to fly. Gentle turn there. Alright, so let's go ahead and engage Command A. And we'll clean up this aircraft. So, water brake can now go off. Gear can get locked. We'll turn off those runway and turn off and taxi lights. Make sure our packs are all good. Yep. We have no warning lights. We're actually in good shape. So now we can look out the window a little bit and see what Ultimate Terrain X Europe version 2 actually does. Actually, I should change this before we do that as well. Init ref. And let's look at our progress for now. Alright. So you can see a combination down here. Ultimate Terrain X doing the roads. doing the trains. One of the things it does, by the way, is you notice it's flying in Innsbruck because you no longer get roads which suddenly just go vertically down the side of a cliff. You get bridges, you get tunnels. So where a road crosses a river, it won't just drive into the water. There'll be a little bridge drawn in there. Ultimate Terrain X does that. And then obviously Orbex trees, you can see very distinct trees here, and they look pretty good. They do stand out a little bit from the Autogen stuff. See these specific trees really sticking out of the forest that they're in, especially given the scale of houses. You know, look at this here. You got a tree that's kind of very prominently stood up on the landscape, and a house here, which is tiny in comparison. So maybe some issues there, but you know, as long as we don't pick too many holes like that, it's actually very attractive. I'm going to set the autopilot height to flight level 180. Let the auto flight system manage that. We'll start our climb up to 180 after we pass Southampton, which is a little while to go yet. There's Southampton there, about 20 miles. And I really want to show you Southampton because it just looks absolutely beautiful. Beautiful stuff. You see better contoured hills here. I don't think these are South Downs. I guess they could count as the South Downs. I'm used to the South Downs around Eastbourne and Brighton, where I grew up. I'm not sure if these count as South Downs. I think they might. Look at the colouring here. I love the colouring now outside here. Very natural. Not a bright garish green. It's quite subdued, faded green, which is much more realistic, I think, for England at least. Look at that Autogen town. Looks very realistic. Let's see if I can move my camera a little bit. In fact, let's jump outside. And we'll climb on up with the camera here. Look at that Autogen stuff down there. Particularly over there, look. Really quite convincing, I think is the best phrase. Really very nice indeed. But you're going to see a lot more as we get into Southampton. Oh, weather's turning murky. And that's what I was saying about Active Sky Next over a network. For me right now, it's something I haven't set up properly on my network set up for Prepared. By the way, this is actually the first video I've done, I think, running Prepared in a network environment. So that's kind of a milestone. Should do more, will do more. Let's turn on the data down here, and then we'll see the altitude constraints that we have. There, 4,000, 1704. So 5 minutes until we get to Southampton, then we'll start our climb up. And then when we get to Southampton, I'll cut the video there. So that'll be part 1. Part 2, we'll be flying into Jersey. And I already know from the weather it's going to be a pretty hairy crosswind landing, but we'll fly the RNAV approach. So if we wanted to be wimps, we could just let the aircraft do everything itself. But I won't. I'll manually land it, of course. So as we get closer to Southampton, you can see the residential areas, these towns and villages building up. Look at that. Little streets down there, residential streets and suburbs, and an industrial area to the right of it. Very clear distinction between the two, which is a great thing. Light keeps changing from Prepared, not sure why. Don't really bother too much about that. You know, realistically, a lot of people get too fixated on making the sim look amazing. And I was reading some old magazines. You can pick up old issues of magazines online fairly easily and just browse them as PDFs. And reading an Acorn user magazine where they were looking at flight simulators in 1983 or 84, and they looked at a Rediffusion fixed-base simulator, which cost about £1 million. It was insanely expensive, and it didn't look anywhere near as good as even this, or anywhere near even as good as FSX. And they had the wonderful headline in there, one day even our desktop sims will be able to do this. Well, that one day was 12 years ago, when we started to really beat the display quality of some of those fixed-base sims from the 80s and the early 90s. So I don't get too hung up on making my sim look absolutely perfect, as long as it looks convincing. You know, those light shifts that we're seeing there as we just skirt the edge of these clouds doesn't really bother me. It is what it is. Because compared to the alternative, this is absolutely incredible. Nice road there, driving through a little village. Look at that. These trees again, a little bit too big. Quite comical, if you really think about it. Alright, Southampton is over here, Isle of Wight in the distance here. Just about make out the faint outline of the Isle of Wight. And there's Southampton all around here. So we'll be turning shortly. And then no doubt climbing up into that murky cloud, where we'll see absolutely nothing. About 10 miles to go now. You know what? I am... No, that is the Isle of Wight, isn't it? I'm thinking that might be the Isle of Wight, but it's not. That would be silly. That is the Isle of Wight over there. Okay. Had relatives on the Isle of Wight for a while. Used to enjoy visiting them. They owned a hotel. Quite a pretty place to visit, albeit quite elderly. But then as somebody that grew up in Eastbourne, born in London but grew up in Eastbourne, I guess that's quite a funny thing to say. If you know England at all, Eastbourne is the town that they say is the town where people go to die. It's where a lot of the elderly people live. And the Isle of Wight's very similar. Look at this. Look at all these autogen areas coming in now with Ultimate Terrain X Europe version 2. Looking very, very realistic. See, we're already getting towards Southampton, so these areas are getting more and more frequent. Beautiful effects of the clouds casting shadows over the terrain here as well. And there is Southampton. Very developed. And we should see a glimpse of it as we bank over it and climb into this cloud base. Isn't that great? So this is stock scenery, just with UTX Europe version 2. And I don't think it's too bad. I think I'm probably going to resist putting Orbex FTX Global on my installer prepared this time around, because this looks great. I don't see any reason to go Orbex FTX Global. This looks incredible. So as more of the UTX products come out, I think I'm going to get those and just layer those on top of the default scenery, because it really looks great and doesn't impact performance. I have had concerns lately that Orbex FTX Global is causing me some performance hit. And my performance right now is great. There we go. Turning on over now, flying over Southampton. Nice of the Civil Aviation Authority to build a SID that decides to have aircraft bank directly over Southampton and then go full power accelerate from 4,000 feet up. I'm sure these residents absolutely adore that particular SID. But it's the law, so we will follow it. Look at these little bridges here. See that? That's an autogen road. And then UTX has put in a bridge here, and then we just flew over one down there. Alright, so that's it for part 1 of this video. Join me for part 2, where we'll bring the aircraft in for an RNAV and then manual landing in Jersey, and crosswind as well. Until next time, my name is Frugal, thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.